I'll tell you a little bit about how this all came about. How Tom and I came about was someone put me in contact with Tom because they knew of my story on a UFO story that went back to 1969. Mm-hmm. And I got talking with Tom, and I ended up as an artist doing a painting of Tom on a UFO that's now in Roswell, a UFO museum.
Right.
And I actually interviewed Tom for almost 4 months, and as we went along, I revealed to him that I had seen the UFO the same night around the same time, and we're like a less than probably, as a crow flies, probably about 5 miles apart.
On that, this is Labor Day '69.
Yes, yes. And we began comparing notes, and Tom never realized that I had seen this particular UFO up close the same night as he did. Mm-hmm. What happened was, and my story's online a bit too, it was late in the evening, and I just got this feeling. I remember saying to my neighbor, I said, you know, I think God's talking to me from those clouds, and what it was this mental telepathy that I never had felt before, and that I had to go home. And as I was walking home, I saw a light in the sky over from where I was in Great Barrington to the southeast. And then I turned around, and then the next thing I know, I looked up, and there was a UFO right above my head.
Oh, wow.
And it was within 35 feet. And it was so close, I could have hit it with a baseball. And then a light came on me, a bright light, and I couldn't move. And it was like I could just hear this message in my mind saying, just lay still just for another minute. You'll be fine. And I was calm. The light went off. I was able to stand up again. And I had to rise to leave my yard.
You had to rise, you said?
No, the UFO had to rise up to clear the trees. It was so low.
Oh, wow. Jeez. And you remember all of this consciously?
I was on this particular time, I was completely conscious, completely aware. Nothing had happened to me at that point. I got to observe this UFO. The thing that intrigued me was the colors of it. I had never seen the colors that I was seeing with my eyes, so it was very intriguing to me.
You've never seen these kinds of colors?
Never.
Huh.
Never have since either.
Huh.
They were just different. You know, it'd be hard to describe. It would be like if you saw an animal that you had never seen before, and all of a sudden you saw it, and you go like, "What was it?" You can describe it.
Yeah. So not on our normal spectrum of light, color. No,
it wasn't like red, blue, green, or something like that. These were like different colors. Like,
wow.
I couldn't even really begin to describe them, you know. But they were going in one direction. Part of the ship was going in one direction, part was going in the other, and then the center was still.
And it was like what? So it was like a saucer shaped.
Yeah, I would say it would. Best to describe it was pretty close to that model that Tom had made down at Roswell.
Okay.
It was pretty close to that. And so the next day, you know, getting ready for school and everything, and they had the radio station on. Everybody had the local radio station on. It's just what was happening in almost all households.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing the announcer say saying about funny business over South Berkshires and UFOs. And my only thought at the time was, oh, thank God I wasn't the only one that saw it.
Right.
And but years later, Tom and I got in a discussion. I couldn't believe it. The only difference is his father was extremely curious and carried on to a great degree. But he was not the only witness to it. But he certainly had one of the more interesting experiences with it because, next thing he knew, he was in some time dimension or whatever.
Yeah.
As he said, but I became aware Tom's case was it was validating what had happened. And for him, for me to come forward, I was really validating his story and something. He had a very honorable intention, and that was to finish his father's work and to talk about it so other people could talk about UFOs and the possible existence of other life out there.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, you didn't talk about it much, and one of the reasons, you get ridiculed.
Yeah.
Once people knew that you had seen something up close, they would begin to open up as well. And now that Tom's done his is in this historical society, and they built a monument, and it's like everybody goes like, yeah, I remember that. I had someone that worked for the post office. Her father had seen it the same night. Just a wild thing that was happening. But it was interesting, though, over the years, even after that, more people have seen it. Seen these, for some reason, I have no idea. I've heard some pretty wild stories, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Tom Reed's was probably about one of the wildest.
Right. You said you had more than one experience with the same craft.
I really didn't see the second craft. Other people saw it. It was above my head, and I was unaware of it, and I lost time. So I saw it in the sky. Yeah, it was. Tom was living right on the Sheffield and Great Barrington border, and then was going into Sheffield, and then they moved from there, eventually up to Great Barrington, and I remember him in high school, just briefly. I remember at one point they had on WSBS, which is the local radio station here.
Yeah.
And they had a guest on at the time. I only can assume that it was Hynek, because he was one of the top UFO experts at that time. I never really made a big deal of it,
Yeah.
But I did talk to a lot of people that were so affected by UFOs.
Yeah.
And often they would come to me and they'd say, for instance, the fighter pilot came up to me and he was devastated. He really was. I mean, but it was him talking to me about my experiences that made him feel better. Because he was questioning himself afterwards.
Yeah. Was he? Where was? Was he in the same area, like in the Northeast?
Yeah, he was in the Northeast. He was on an all-out scramble. I'm not sure where it was, and they were given permission to fire. And he had a lockdown on a UFO. When he came back to base, they told him he didn't have anything, and he had to sign different papers that he saw nothing.
Yeah.
And he refused to, and he was thrown out of the military, and there was no record that he was ever in after that.
Whoa.
But so I ended up doing a painting of Tom in a UFO.
Right. Is that he said you do watercolor work? Is that?
I'm a watercolor artist. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I probably have seen it. I mean, I've gone to Roswell several times.
If you Google Tom Warner UFO case, it's in there. If you Google it, and as is Tom's painting as well.
Right. Cool.
I was being interviewed by New England Legends.
Right.
And so they came out of the town hall, and Tom was all excited. They said we could put it right where we wanted it, and that there's no problem. Now he was there with a reporter. There's no way anybody would have just made that up.
Yeah.
And so later on, I went back and tried to, smooth things over at the town, and they're like, "We never said that." And I'm like, "Liar, liar, pants on fire."
Right.
And so it got into this thing, and then I went back to find out where it was going to be put. They moved it, or where they were going to move it, and she said it has to be 50 feet from the bridge because of needed right away. They could, first of all, this bridge you could never use for a fire truck or anything other than a bicycle.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
It would cost astronomical fees just to bring it up to those standards, and it would go nowhere, and they would have to widen the road, and I mean, it's basically an old road. And so I said, "Now that's 50 feet, right?" And I kept saying 50 feet. I emphasized it, and I said in front of her secretary, "Okay, so we're going to move it 50 feet. Where is the 50 feet? Here." So they moved it, but then other people were like, "Oh, that's not far enough," but it was too late. They negotiated where it was, so
yeah.
It's still within that green and in the area where he first saw it. So the whole plan is to, spruce up the monument and, calm everybody's nerves and everything. And all that.
Yeah.
So.
And that was. Did you ever? Do you know Nick? I guess he's a local writer. Who?
Nick, the local writer. I believe he was with Tom that day.
Yeah. Yeah. From what I need to talk to him as well, but from what I understand, he was covering it. And then he was told not to write it. That his
I'm shocked. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, how strange. Like, where do you think all that came from? That kind of, beyond a resistance.
You had Sheffield had Sheffield. There was some people in the historical down in Sheffield. I don't know if it was a historical commission, but. You probably had 4 or 5 people who didn't like it.
Yeah.
And they were going to try to make waves. And they had good political connections. And basically everyone kind of fought back privately, behind the scenes. I was somebody behind the scenes saying, look, this took place. It happened. So I basically went out and told my story, saying, look, Reed wasn't out of his mind or anything. It was what it was. It was an event.
Yeah.
And it had a profound impact.
I've been talking to Tom about the racetrack, and then you had that jazz venue where all the jazz.
Well, you had a lot of famous things that have come through here. You had, first of all, which is interesting history, it was the first resistance to British rule. And in the Revolution, it had first place to have electric lights, but more modern history, it's the place of Norman Rockwell. There's all kinds of people that have come out of here and left prominence throughout the world. James Weldon Johnson, who was the first field secretary of the NAACP. There's always been a lot of firsts around here, and great artists and great poets, and it's a cultural center. There's an expression, "Was you there, Charlie?" And I can say, "Oh yeah, I was there." People who were older then, most of them had died and passed on. So, I mean, Tom's, father got into a conference of the UN and did all this stuff, So my hat's off to him, So,
yeah, and that's a whole other section of the book that's going to be just as heavy, in those later years, like 80s and 90s, the way his father died, and then how he almost died, and it was just a lot of strange coincidences that are just spooky. You can call them coincidences, you can call it a conspiracy, but they happened, and it's
But they happened.
Yeah.
But they happened. Absolutely. Absolutely. But mostly it's like, yes, I was a witness to Tom Reed's night too,
Yeah.
What I saw as I was leaving, looking back, I saw a bright light to the southeast, which would have been down about where Tom was, in that general direction. In
by the
sky.
bridge.
I'm like, what is that? I thought.
And it was, you described those colors. Did it seem, obviously it had a shape. Did it seem metallic?
Well, I would sort of metallic-y gray, dully gray, but the bright lights on the outside going in one direction.
Did the lights seem to have a definite source, or was it just more?
Well, the lights seemed to be going around in a circle, so to me it was like that was some sort of energy source, and the bottom of it, there was a light on the bottom. Mm-hmm. The light came from the bottom center of it.
Uh-huh.
And it was bright,
Yeah.
But it was a different type of bright. I couldn't, it's like, I couldn't really describe it, just that it was very bright, but it held me in place. I could not get up, I could not move.
Huh. You were just
standing. And it wasn't out of fear.
Yeah. You were standing.
Fear makes you run, This was like holding me, but then there was that mental telepathy saying, just a minute, hold on, you're okay, just relax. And I did.
Huh.
Then I relaxed.
And then the
light went off. I stood up and boom, and then I ran. After I saw it leave the yard, I ran. I was like, forget it. I was inside.
Oh wow! It rose, and then did it just dart off, or did it slowly?
It had to rise to clear the trees in our yard, and it slowly went off, and then it went down probably about 300 yards, and then it shot off to the left, which would have been towards like Egremont that way.
Oh wow!
And then it was gone. And I've heard people said that they saw it in Egremont, they saw it in Great Barrington, they saw it in Sheffield.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's.
But on the same night, if you look up online, and Tom has that information because I sent it to him. On the same night, in 1969. It was seen in eastern Massachusetts, it was seen in the Berkshires, it was seen in the Adirondacks, and it was seen in Quebec. Now, whether they were the same one or a group of them, who knows?
Yeah.
But there was a number of sightings that night.
I'm going to be talking to a lot of people, so it'll be really cool to hear about the same event from several point of view.
Yeah, I'm sure. You must be excited about doing it.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's so unique, and it's all happening right now. I mean, just talk about digging up the past, and there was even tension within the town.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Tom's mind, they creamed it.
Right.
They creamed it with graffiti, So the next thing is to, because I do kind of different contracting work, I told him I'd help him on it, and, I try to smooth things out behind the scenes and calm people down, and,
Yeah.
Help him out, be I'm kind of his ears in the town, because I'm here, and he's, he's located in Tennessee right now, so
right.
It helps him out. He can say, "Well, what about this person? Oh, can you talk to the person at not the publisher? You know,
yeah.
Of the record and stuff." And by the way, the publisher of that record, which he had this one guy, a reporter, that was just like being brutal on him.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean,
he was just doing anything to agitate him. Everything.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know why, other than selling newspapers. You know.
Right. But yeah, thanks for talking, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Okay.
All right.
You take care.
Take care. All right. Bye.
Okay.